The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Rack 'em and stack 'em.
Josh Sigala from the Standard.io,
Bring on the good stuff.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. SEC claims jurisdiction because Ethereum nodes are clustered in the US. The SEC has argued that because Ethereum validators are concentrated more densely in the United States, Ethereum transactions are seen as taking place in the country. Thus, they can sue a YouTuber who promoted an ICO using the Ethereum network. Dan Eve, your thoughts on the SEC's interpretation of Ethereum transactions?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because they're not going after Ethereum specifically. This is more about Ian Bellina and his ICO shilling, right? So in 2017, 2018, he did a lot of ICO shilling. There was also that famous little clip where he got kind of ransacked live on air, sadly. Because he stored his private keys in Evernote, and then his Evernote got hacked. But that aside, going back to Ethereum, so they are clustered more densely around the US. I think it was something like 41%, but it's not like the majority of them, right? So it's not more than 50%. So I think that in order to make the argument that the transactions mostly happen in the US, that surely like most of the nodes would have to be there, like more than half. I suppose, rather than just it being the largest number of nodes in a specific country. But it's the long arm of the US law, right? They're trying to. This isn't the SEC or the SEC going after Ethereum specifically. They're going after this specific ICO, and they know that if they can get a kind of bit of a foot in the door with Ethereum, there's probably a lot of money to be made and a lot of control over Ethereum that they can actually get. And that's ultimately what they want, right? It is sad that there's a lot of maximalists that are kind of from the Bitcoin side, like singing the praises of the SEC, going after them, which I always think is really odd to be shouting about free markets and freedom and stuff like that, and lack of censorship, and then calling for the censorship of other things that they disagree with. It's always quite kind of a bit hypocritical, but ultimately, this is going to be a bit of a test case to see how kind of much of an impact their decision about, or whether they do conclude that the Ethereum transactions are on US soil and therefore they should come under US law. Yeah, I think we'll see. We'll see. I don't think it's going to got much legs, to be honest, because as much as there is still some decentralization there, it's not fully decentralized. Certainly not as much as Bitcoin, but ultimately it's not a completely centralized entity.
Joshua Shigalo, what do you think? Is 51% even the right place to start? If 51% of the transactions are on U.S. soil, does that mean the entire system is?
No, it's a total ridiculous land grab on their side. It's funny seeing different countries dealing with it differently. Like in Germany, everyone's trying to pass off, oh no, it's a commodity, it's their problem. Oh no, it's whereas in the States, it seems like every government entity wants to take control and have more jurisdiction over Bitcoin or over Ethereum. There's really. It's really kind of a strange stretch to say that because the nodes are there, then the transactions are there. And also, like, why don't they spend the money educating people on how to invest rather than this absolute farcical, ridiculous jumping through a million hoops to try to catch people selling investment opportunities, whether they're bad or good. This should be something that needs to be taught to people, how to actually look at these opportunities, quote unquote, and figure out for themselves if they are good or bad or ugly, rather than this weird, let's take over the network. But I think it's really, this is the time where the governments are going to start to really try to take control, and this is just another attack vector on the network. They can't reverse transactions. They can't actually take control. Now, if they could, that would be a different story, and that's probably what they would end up doing, but they can't, so they'd just rather go after some sort of jurisdictional control. I'm not sure. It's weird.
Unfortunately, Josh, your plan to educate the investors would require the teaching of critical thinking skills. And we decided here in the United States, after the success of propaganda during World War I, not to educate our people with critical thinking skills, because that would disarm the propaganda. In order to keep the propaganda successful, keep the people ignorant, thus your propaganda keeps working. Exit question: will the SEC regulate Ethereum? Yes or no? Dan Eve.
I think they'll have a good a good try at doing so. Again, if they're realizing that cryptocurrencies are growing in such with such force around the world, countries adopting it, and them not being able to stop that, then they're going to do whatever they can to maintain control over a monetary system, and they'll pick on something that they obviously can't do with Bitcoin, so they'll pick on the smaller ones.
Joshua Shigala. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens if other countries try to do the same strategy. And it's like, hang on, but there's got to be just one here.
Yeah, turn into a big game of hungry hippos, but with their cryptos. They're all trying to clamber for control.
There can't be 51% everywhere, but if there's 10, 15% here, why shouldn't we get a cut? Why shouldn't they get a cut? And them too. I think the answer is yes, the SEC will attempt to regulate Ethereum. However, will they be successful? Will they have total success? Let's remember that Ethereum, like Bitcoin, is software, and software can be changed. Moving on to issue 2, Bitcoin could return to $68,000 within 4 years and hit $500,000 in the next decade, according to MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor, whose company has also purchased more Bitcoin and had a similar decline to Bitcoin in their stock price. Michael Saylor also says that Bitcoin is better than physical property for regular folks, and that there's no maintenance cost in owning and inheriting digital property, whereas with other and physical property, there's a ton of costs. Josh Shigala, your thoughts on Michael Saylor, his Bitcoin predictions, and his ideas about Bitcoin as real estate and property, which of course we've discussed many times on these shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a hey, I don't know, that prediction is pretty vague. It's like, the longer you extend the time period, the less of a prediction it really is, because
well, and how can he even predict anything lacking the magical Bitcoin ball? Like, obviously he's on very untrustworthy ground to begin with.
Maybe he has one. No,
it's possible he could have a copy. We didn't put this ball on the blockchain, so as everyone knows, it could easily be copied.
Yeah, but I having such a long time frame, really, anyone that's long Bitcoin would say the same. Like in the next 4 years, McAfee, rest in peace, wanted to eat his dick if it didn't reach a mil or whatever it was, 100K. I can't remember.
I think it was 100K. We were pretty close. But then so was he to making the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. It's such a typical sort of thing to sort of pull out these huge numbers and then be the guy that's like correct, because, in 3 years' time, when it does reach that, everyone's going to go, "Ooh, Saylor, you're just so brilliant. You're just amazing." When really, you can ask any maxi the same question. They'll say the same thing.
Well, and a lot of it's because of the Bitcoin halvening structure, right, Josh? The fact that we know production will reliably go down within the next 2 years by 50% means that we can adjust accordingly and assume that the price of Bitcoin will go up.
Yeah.
Dan, Eve, do you have similar prognosticating powers to Michael Saylor?
Well, I think he's quoting the classic four-year rule, right? Which is based on the halvening schedule. I do think I've got this. I mean, I still think it's going to pump massively after, just because of the economics of and the model of the Bitcoin. The economical model of Bitcoin, and compared to other sort of currencies that have just been printed to infinity. But I do think like the impact of the halvening, could wane over time, because the amount that, even though you're halvening the reward, the amount of reward that's coming out compared to the amount of supply that there is kind of reduces. It's less of an impact each time. When you first had the halvening from 50 down to 25, the supply was only 10 million. Now this supply going from 6.25 whatever it is down to 3.7 or whatever it's 3.12 whatever it is, that's going to be less of an impact, because they're going to be around 19.5 or 20 million Bitcoin sort of mined. So that is actually the less of an impact. But ultimately, this is he's obviously still shilling Bitcoin a lot. He kind of is all right, because he got in at 9.5K on average. MicroStrategy not doing so well, but they dropped their kind of MicroStrategy death bar Bitcoin margin call bar from 21K. They dropped it and said, oh, actually they can go down to 3K before there's really an issue, and they've still got surplus Bitcoin that they could sell off to stay out of that margin call. But it is a small order, and so it is evident about their confidence in how far this dip could actually reach in between the next halvening. But I definitely agree that 4 years' time, and Bitcoin's going to be way up on what it is now, just by previous market cycles, without using triangles and stuff, and Mystic Meg's classic ball, which isn't as good as the Magic or 8 ball, of course.
Yeah, I don't think Michael Saylor has anything more powerful than the Bitcoin predictor ball to base his predictions on. However, we are very lucky to have someone like him out there in the media predicting good things for Bitcoin while the market is falling apart and everyone else is losing their heads. These are the kind of predictions in a bear market where you predict something positive for Bitcoin and it turns out later to be true that are the most important predictions, because these also drive opinion. The Bitcoin bottom is not just a number, it's a psychological number. Everyone has to feel like they've been wrecked and destroyed, like it's all over. And then they'll know the bottom is in. And good predictions like Michael Saylor help us remember that maybe there will be good times ahead for Bitcoin. And now, Dan, Eve, Joshua Shigala predicting against the ball. Joshua Shigala, will it go up or down, higher or lower this time next week?
I think we might be near the bottom. We might be going up a little bit, according to the Elliott wave, 1, 2, 3, 8, 4, 8, 6 ABC. No, to be honest, yeah, I think we have hit a little bit of a bottom. We might go up for a little bit, and then we'll be going sideways and down, and everyone's nervous right now. So usually what happens is once it's gone down for a long time, it'll do a little bit of a rally, but then people will go like, "Ooh, it's up! I'm going to sell." Nervous hands will start to sell. It takes a while for people to get rid of all the weak hands and have the hardcore just still holding. So I think we'll be going sideways for a little while and up in the short term.
You can trust the Elliott wave. You can also trust the rainbow chart. Dan, Eve, higher or lower?
I'm still going lower. Unfortunately, I think there's still so much pessimism in the world. The price is still affected by lots of general craziness that happens outside of it, right? Like, for anything from the war that's still going on, Russia's mobilizing troops, and there's still lots of general fear and uncertainty in terms of the markets. Inflation's going crazy, but then there's all these countermeasures that the countries are trying to, the central banks and stuff are also trying to implement to counter that. So I think that there's still a lot of up and downs. We don't have the absolute certainty of the halvening to really kind of rally the troops and flip out the laser eyes again and all that kind of crazy stuff.
The youngest member of the panel, but also the most pessimistic, a crusty young man, Dan Eve. Will the magical Bitcoin ball agree with you? Here we are, we're shaking the ball, evidence for YouTube. And now, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Outlook good. Outlook good. The magical Bitcoin ball is optimistic. Place your own predictions in the chat down below. It's a great time to give us a thumbs up and check us out. We've got our own audio podcast on Apple, iTunes, and other places where you can check out podcasts. It's up to date. Last week's episode is there, and we have exactly 67 ratings. Not a single person has rated us since last week. So there's still a chance for you to rate our audio podcast. It's rated 3.8 stars with 67 ratings. World Crypto Network. Issue 3, CEO of Kraken, the cryptocurrency exchange, steps down. Jesse Powell, the chief executive, has battled with employees after posting messages about race and gender and urging those who disagreed with his values to leave. Obviously, a friend of this show. We went to college together. CEO Jesse Powell did an incredible job at Kraken, leading the company to a $10.5 billion evaluation. That's a decacorn. That's 10 unicorns. Kraken did have the political troubles, but it also is a huge mark of success for Jesse and the team at Kraken to build an exchange out of nothing and to step down successfully, leaving the company to be run by other professionals. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on Jesse Powell's stepping down, and do you think it was just a good time, had something to do with the politics? All of these ideas and more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's not always, correlation, as they say, correlation does not equal causation. And even though it's kind of just after the timing of that kind of what seemed to be controversial, anti-wokeness sort of rant, the fact is that or most CEOs and slash founders step down after a while to focus on other things. They're still, he's still a member of the board. But being as the chairman, so now being the chairman is a bit less responsibility and especially in the day to day. And I'm sure once you reach a point where you make a $10 billion company, some people do just crack on and build more companies or whatever, like say Elon Musk, but others want to take some time out and like live life, do other things. So yeah, there was obviously a bit of controversy over what he said about the in his Slack channels and becoming a dictator or taking it back to dictatorship. But ultimately, people want to live their lives. If I had $10 billion and built a huge company, I'd want to go and do much more cool stuff and not have to worry about the day to day. Just step in as chairman every now and then, making some groovy decisions and just focus on other things, rather than have to deal with the nitty gritty and also the risk with it, right? There's a lot of regulatory risk that comes with it. So you're kind of you're offsetting that risk or handing off that risk to someone else to take on and that responsibility. And as CEO of the second biggest exchange in the US, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that and a lot of risk that comes with that. So I think it's fair to think that it might not just be just the controversial anti-wokeism and could just be like hey, I want to go and do cool things other than be CEO of a huge mega company.
The dictatorship lasted only 3 months. However, still personally, salute, cheers to Jesse Powell, creating a unicorn, a Deca unicorn, a $10 billion company out of Sac State, and getting your resignation into the New York Times, the paper of record, when he stepped down. As for the politics, I think it was probably time to go. Like Dan said, plenty of other things for Jesse to do in the art world, in the crypto world, anything he's interested in. The sky's the limit. He has plenty of options now. It's a great position to be in. Josh Shigala, your thoughts? A similar story, another crypto CEO Jesse Powell taking his exit this week.
I wish him all the best. Jesse's been in this game for ages. I've never met him personally, although I feel like I have, because he's been in the game for such a long time, just like me and you guys. One thing that's always scary when it comes to the exchange side is, Kraken's been one of the very few exchanges, just like Voltoro, that's never been hacked really, and so when there is a change of guard, it is scary to see if how the new guard deals with security, deals with these sorts of issues. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I think Dan's 100% right, and yourself, Thomas, that after a while, I've run Voltoro since 2015, and there is a lot of stress, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of drama, personnel drama, all this stuff. It's just constant. And sometimes, I can imagine running, I can't even imagine running a Deca unicorn like that, how much pressure is constantly on you. So yeah, well done, Jesse. I think you've created an amazing exchange, amazing product. You guys have had your ups and downs like crazy. I remember during the 2017 or around when Bitcoin Cash split, the exchange was just always going down. It was hard to use because the just got hit too much. It got too much traffic, and then they fixed that, and it's run butterly smooth since then. Good luck, Jesse. I hope to see you around the traps, and I'd love to see him on the show.
And again, just shout out to Jesse. He was a huge early Bitcoin supporter. He gave people the ability to buy Bitcoin, as well as the ability, if they wanted to trade them for altcoins, so on and so forth. An incredible service to the community, and really allowing people the option and the chance to buy with Kraken. Exit question: will Brian Armstrong resign in a similar manner? With the documentary Coin coming out later this month in October, Brian Armstrong is now featured in his own documentary. Similar political troubles to Jesse Powell, similar offer to people to take it or leave it, have some money and go. Dan Eve, will Brian Armstrong exit Coinbase the way that Jesse Powell exited Kraken?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to kind of stay out of the limelight and just kind of take a break from it all. But I don't know. It seems like he might be there for a while, right? He might be one of these long termers, and because they are the biggest. They've already floated. Last year, was it this year or last year? Went public. So yeah, maybe he's going to stay for a while after that, and especially after going public and the share price dipping like quite a lot, you probably want to recover it and leave in not good standing, but you want to try and at least get the price up to more than what you floated at before you trot it off into the sunset.
Joshua Shigala, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he'll probably head off as well. I mean, it's they're all very wealthy. Both Jesse and Brian now. So after a while, the stress is just like, is this worth it, or should I try something new, a new venture? And everyone here, I'm pretty sure everyone listening to the show also have these good ideas, right? You're going through life, you think, what's really needed is that, or this, or that would be really cool. That would solve a lot of problems. And these guys are very talented now. They've got a lot of resources behind them, so they could execute on some of these other ideas that they have. So because they're not just CEOs. They weren't hired as a CEO. They're co-founders or founders. And so so they obviously have ideas of them to sort of try out. Yeah.
And the answer is Brian Armstrong will go down with the ship. Much like Mark Zuckerberg, he will never leave, not by choice. I haven't even seen the new documentary yet, and I can already tell you it's a narcissistic ego worship, and we all should be worshiping at the feet of Brian Armstrong, who brought us all of our coins, which is true.
Is it a
Brian
self-made one?
Armstrong
Is
will
it?
never leave. I don't know if it's
Is
self-made, but Jesse and I didn't have a film crew following us around yet, and Brian did. So
it?
he's well ahead of the game. Congratulations to Brian Armstrong, who I think will continue to rule at Coinbase. Moving on to issue 4, Udi Wertheimer. Bitcoin diehard, once upon a time, hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, Udi Wertheimer now trolls against crypto tribalism. Have fun saying poor, and many other famous memes were coined by Wertheimer and spread by others, die-harding Bitcoin, showing their maximalism and bragging to the world. But now, much like many other Bitcoin heroes, Wertheimer has changed his mind, saying that DeFi and NFTs offer opportunities beyond Bitcoin. Joshua Shigala, what do you think about Wertheimer's change in tactics and beliefs and the contrast with his earlier work?
Well, there's very few Bitcoin maximalists that I know that don't have a portfolio of some other projects. And, you know, me being a technologist, I love technology. I was always Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And when I say crypto, I usually refer to Bitcoin, meaning crypto. And because all of my friends were also Bitcoin maxis, I got put in that pool. And I do believe that Bitcoin is is very dear to my heart. It is the project that will always keep going, I believe, and it is the most important project in cryptocurrency. But saying that, there's just other things that you can't do on Bitcoin. So, you know, that's why we're building the standard on Ethereum, because we just don't have the op returns on Bitcoin. The scripting language isn't fully laid out there. So it is what it is. And I don't think it makes total sense. You know, as a technologist, it's interesting to see other projects. I don't understand tribalism. The real tribalism should be us against fiat. I mean, you know, it's kind of like Bitcoin has taken the piss out of Peter Schiff for like never getting on the Bitcoin bandwagon. It's the same thing for Bitcoin. It's always taken the piss out of altcoins, you know, and that's also a weird term, but like certain projects that are alternative to Bitcoin, and sort of just shitting on that and going la 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 la. I don't want to hear about it. And so, yeah, I think it's ridiculous to be just only one technology. This world is vast and amazing, and you should be interested in a lot of other things. Now, that's not to say that Bitcoin isn't freaking awesome, and that's where you know, a majority of holdings should be. But yeah, I don't think we should be infighting and stuff.
Well, remember, to begin with, Udi was trying to live up to a false standard that was set by essentially the enemy of Bitcoin, Vitalik Buterin. Vitalik set this ultimate purity for Bitcoin maximalism, where you couldn't consider another project. You couldn't even, you know, entertain it because it could be a scam and because it wasn't Bitcoin. This is simple and easy to follow, just like HODL, but has the same problem with HODL, where if you HODLed all the way from the top to the bottom, then you didn't get any. Maybe you need HODL plus profits. In addition to that, maybe you need Bitcoin plus side projects. For example, this morning I bought a bunch of, I don't think they're valuable, but they were fun, little NFTs on the Wax network, which is a copy of EOS, and I bought Hot Wheels cars for 15 cents a piece. And that's fun, but we don't need a Bitcoin transaction for each one of those. They don't need the ultimate security of the world, and they don't need to be stored for 5,000 years. They can be fun little Hot Wheels cars on their own. And I'm glad to see Udi change his mind. However, I do remember how hard he went on maximalism, how heavy he was into brutalizing others and attacking and so forth. So it is unfortunately very hypocritical to give that up, to switch to this other side. I've also heard this week from Twitter that Bitcoin Tina, that TINA is Bitcoin, there is no alternative, has capitulated and is selling some or perhaps all of his coins. So the problem with extremism, the further you go out there on being extreme, the harder it is to walk it back if you've made a mistake. And if you're an extremist, you are usually making a mistake. The exception is, of course, true extremists, hardcore fascists who break through the barriers, through the lines, and never look back, never step back and reconsider. So just like we've always said with Roger Ver and other people, welcome back, Udi. You can be reasonable. But again, he was so unreasonable to so many people for so long, especially that the have fun staying poor. It's a nice slogan if you're into Bitcoin and you're feeling comfortable. It's a horrible slogan if you haven't gotten enough Bitcoin, if you didn't buy early enough, because now it's just haunting you. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the haunting slogans? And is it even worse if you were such a die-hard maximalist to then change your mind? If you're more middle of the road, more in moderation, all things, maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
That really was like the worst saying, wasn't it? Have fun staying poor. Was that some sort of like paraphrasing of an apparent? Well, I don't think it was actually here, but like something that Paris Hilton said, like from a South Park episode or something.
To
She
me,
have like a
it
t-shirt?
seems like
Like
it has a lot of roots in the Satoshi quote, which I think was to Dan Larimer, the founder of EOS and some of these other projects, where he said, "If you don't understand it, I don't have time to explain it to you." Something like that. That kind of dismissive, pithy, very quickness. I think there's something about that, and then you mix in the financial element, and you say, "Have fun staying poor," which is really just the biggest flex and brag from someone in a Lambo who probably started off doing pretty well in like a Toyota Corolla or something. It's not like you went from a Corolla to a Lambo. You didn't go from like, feet, dirt socks to having a car. It's an easier step. But what do you think about the hypocriticalness of have fun staying poor?
Well, I hated that saying. I thought it was really bad because it flew in the face of, when I first started learning about Bitcoin, about how it could change the world for the unbanked. And as we said before, like the situation is slightly changed now. It can still happen for it via Lightning, but as a base layer, it's obviously a bit more difficult. Yeah, I don't know. It was a really kind of, had an arrogance to it that I just really couldn't stand. And but what I think is honourable when people change their position. Like the fact is that anyone who can evaluate how they've been thinking and change direction, and especially someone who was so hardcore as a Bitcoiner. It's interesting to see people turning, rather than just staying with their guns, even though they've got this cognitive dissonance that some Bitcoiners I speak to, and they're just they're itching to buy a shitcoin. They're itching to, but they're just the principles and the fact is that Bitcoin is money, and I've never seen, although you may get, you can cherry pick a few examples of people saying that Ethereum is money, but largely most people that I speak to, they don't see Ethereum as money. They see it as something that's like, they see it as gas. They see it as they use Ethereum rather than hodling it, right? They use it to buy NFTs. They use it as gas to stake any dollars when they're coming out of Bitcoin or any other assets. So it's not all about I don't know. It's not all about being money, and you can't satisfy everyone. People will do other stuff whether you like it or not. You don't like NFTs, well, someone else is going to like them. You don't like you don't like DeFi, someone else is going to do it. Yeah, there's going to be scams, but unfortunately, that's just there's scams in everything you do. There's scams in using PayPal. There's scams in anything for the postal service, right? How many postal service things do you get pretending to be to be someone delivering to you, and they're trying to get your money in some way? So you're going to get scams and fraud and everything. And I think going back to what we said at the beginning of the show, the government should be doing more to educate people on scams. And in everything you do, not just cryptocurrencies, not just finding a good investment and weeding out the scam, weeding out the bullshit in every industry, in anything you go to, people are going to bullshit you in some way, and you're not going to get the right straight answer, and you need to weed out the certain information. And you need to learn that in everything, whether you're putting money into something as an investment or whether you just want to buy a product that doesn't turn out to be horseshit. So ultimately, Bitcoin is it's money. It's money, and it's going to change the financial system as we know it. And it's doing a great job of doing it at the moment. And Ethereum's like for doing funny stuff. Like it's Bitcoin money, Ethereum funny. Simple as that.
Exit question. Bitcoin maximalism. I think what we're really trying to say here is that to the new people, we're saying Bitcoin is truth and it's amazing, but you won't really understand it at first. So we have this kind of shortcut called maximalism, where we'll put you into the maximum camp for a while and you can think about Bitcoin, and this will keep you safe from all the scams and other things that you might find. But it also might keep you safe from incredible profits or the ability to express yourself creatively or learn some smart contracts. But giving that stuff up is worth it because it keeps you safe from scams. So the question is, and then eventually, once you've figured it all out, then you can be kind of this person that knows the truth, this cosmic being that can go out there and make your own choices, where you're like, a 15-cent NFT won't destroy my Bitcoin hodl. Like, it would be fun. I could send it to a friend. Joshua Shigala, do you think we should continue to have this kind of Bitcoin maximalism to protect the newbies? Or does the hardcore nature of this maximalism, it's at its necessity, that it must be like a religion, that it must be enforced, that it must have heretics like Udi, who used to burn people at the stake and now is being burned at the stake? Should we continue to use this maximalism? Josh, you're muted though.
Oh man, it's a goddamn free world, like that's what I try to live at anyway. And if, I'm reading BTC Moon Guy, he loves Bitcoin. He's only ever going to hold Bitcoin. He's never going to buy any alts. And that's fantastic. That's great. I just go for it. I think it's really, really, it's probably the smartest thing you can do. It's just, I have a fascination about other little projects, or I want to do fun little NFT things, or like, for instance, when we do our community chat, we give away these proof of attendance NFTs, and this is fun little thing, and it's a great little marketing gag and stuff. It's technology, and what I don't like is the toxic side of people attacking each other. We saw in the scaling debate that go to retarded levels, where we really saw really talented core developers having so much crap slung at them that they left the industry. And these were very, very, very talented, lovely people. And sometimes in a way that they're so ridiculously good at coding, they're still sort of in their 50s living with their parents because they can't sort of handle the world. So when they got this sort of massive onslaught of pain thrown at them through this sort of toxicity, it's really bad. So that's the only thing I don't like about sort of extremist tribalism is this sort of toxic nature of it. But man, if you are only going to buy one asset, then just buy one asset. That's great, good on you. I've just never understood really the whole I'm going to slag on anyone that holds any other stocks or shares, or I hold only Apple shares, screw everyone that's at Microsoft shares. I just never understood it. Like, Microsoft's got its place, Apple's got its place. Yeah.
There is something about the extremism though that helps you stick to a routine or something you want to practice. You're like, I only eat meat, or I only don't eat meat. It's a lot simpler to do that than to do like 70% vegetarian or 90% vegetarian, or I only eat meat on Fridays. So from a Bitcoin perspective, I can see what they're saying. It's very very simple to say no altcoins ever. If you do start to think about an altcoin, even just one for fun, like I bought a bunch of 15-cent NFTs, the only value they have is they show up in my binder, my collection. They have collector's value. But it is kind of a shortcut. You could miss out on opportunities. Then again, Bitcoin is the truth, right? I mean, it's just about how do we get people to this idea of Bitcoin is the truth. A lot of times, and we're getting all religious here, they have to walk their own path. They have to lose money. They have to get scammed. They have to do whatever. And some of these altcoins are fun and light. Other ones are not fun. And even the fun ones, you can lose your shirt. You could lose all your money.
Yeah,
Dan, Eve, what do you think? Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
So this is the problem that I've seen. I've mentioned it on the show before, that when people call out everything as a scam, then when there is a scam, like when OneCoin comes out and everyone's shouting that OneCoin's a scam and Ethereum's a scam as well, then they're like, well, Ethereum's not a scam. There's thousands of people working on it and it's legit, and I can see it's working and stuff. And OneCoin literally is a scam. They don't have a product, they don't have anything, they're just scamming people. That really fools people and blurs the lines between what's an actual scam and what's just an experiment in the space. And that's what's really it's really important.
It is very it's hard to see whether it's a failed experiment, an overpromised experiment, or a scam that was set up beforehand to take your money, or if it just became one of those things along the way. We never know the whole story if we're not there. But Dan, Eve, what do you think about Bitcoin maximalism as a bit extremist, but as maybe like a boot camp for new users, that we send the new users through this boot camp? It keeps them safe for a little while. Maybe they avoid some scams. Maybe they hodl some strong Bitcoin, and they certainly get a chance to learn about this amazing technology, Bitcoin, which is truth and amazing. But how do you explain someone such a technology that's so complex and amazing?
Well, the thing is that Bitcoin is more than it's money, but it's more than money, right? It's the philosophy of, you get into like the existing systems that we're using, and the pitfalls of those systems, and how they have such a control over society, and how that's only getting worse with the invention of CBDCs. It's almost like if CBDCs get implemented, then things are going to get more monitored, more controlled, and worse for people than being able to use cash, which is a sad state. And it does seem like it's going that way. But
it seems like our banking system, at first it was on cocaine, and then they invented crack.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with that, you're going to get more of, instead of maximalism dying down, you're going to get more maximalists. I think that situation is only going to grow, because as much as we're saying that the maximalists are toxic, what's really toxic is the financial system as it currently has evolved, and what it's evolved into. And so as that grows in power and strength, and the galactic force of central banks only becomes more controlling and crazy, you're going to see the adverse reaction to that from the Bitcoiner side. I don't think that there'll ever be like Bitcoiners maximalism holding hands with Ethereum and other coins to fight the banking industry. There's still going to be infighting, as there is inside of Bitcoin, right? There's Bitcoiners hating on Ethereum, then there's Bitcoin cashers hating on Bitcoin and Bitcoin ABC. There's always going to be that infighting, and there's always going to be that really kind of funny and almost a bit like, I don't know, a bit pathetic fighting on the inside as to who's the biggest maximalist, who can say the most nasty thing about non-Bitcoiners, and who can get the biggest likes and shares from being mean to other people that have bought Ethereum as well as Bitcoin. There's always going to be lots of that, and I think it's only going to grow with time, and it needs to, in order to counter the central banking system.
Josh Shigala, what do you think? Will we see more maxis And more importantly, how upset will the maxis be by my Buddhist description of maximalism as just another stage along the path towards crypto enlightenment, not the final stage?
Competition maximalism. Yeah, I think it's a good analogy, but I don't know if it's true, because I think most people come into crypto nowadays from an alt, actually, and then they eventually get wrecked, and then they find Bitcoin. So I think it's the other way around. But yeah, I do feel that reading through the chat here, and by the way, people, if you're not on the chat, where are you? Because it's awesome. We have people. Proper Goal is always there. I want to put him in the ring. I want to put you in the ring, man. BTC Moon Guy, J Deluxe, good to see you around as well, Louis. But yeah, saying that a lot of people still don't know about Lightning Network, or think that it's in beta, or it doesn't work or whatever. And he's right. Like, and my answer just now was that Bitcoin was the very first. So it didn't have all the little nuances figured out, and a lot of the alts have tweaked stuff. And now the original idea was, well, the alts are like a test net, so whatever's really good will be brought into Bitcoin. But the problem that we saw was that no one wants to hard fork Bitcoin, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that Bitcoin stays Bitcoin. It does what it does really well. We had now, pardon me, some soft forks to allow us for SegWit and now Lightning, so we can do second layer stuff. But things like having a treasury for like all the reward going to the miners in Bitcoin, rather than having the ability for some of it to go, like on Dash, for instance. Not that I don't know what's happening to that project, but I haven't looked at it in ages. But Dash, for instance, started allowing miners to get paid, but also build a treasury to be able to have people voting on, marketing ideas or ways to get the message out, paying meetup people, and so having not everything going to miners and securing the network. And I always found that that's a great idea. And so yeah, I do believe that there are other experiments. They're not getting amalgamated into Bitcoin, and it's unfortunate, because in one way, because I do feel that there should be education about that. And quite frankly, I feel like people like Michael Saylor, who's obviously extremely well off, would do well in maybe putting a bit more money into helping Bitcoin market things like the Lightning Network.
It really is a miracle, Josh, that Bitcoin survived and prospered, and that you at home heard about it, even though Bitcoin didn't have any of those shared mining pools. It didn't pay any YouTubers. It didn't pay any meetup people, nothing like that. It was just all people who thought it was a good technology, something that could bank the unbanked and so forth, that they adopted it and spent their own time promoting it. Spoiler alert, NFTs and altcoins are the greatest advertisements ever for Bitcoin, but Bitcoiners hate them. Moving on to issue 5. Issue 5, growth of Bitcoin ATMs installed globally stalls for the first time in history. We'd hoped to have Martine here for this issue, but as you can see from this chart, Bitcoin ATMs growth, which is off the hook, less than 10K in 2018, 19, and 20, hitting 10K in 2021, then exploding to almost 40,000 installations in 2022. However, it looks like it's topped. Maybe it's just the Bitcoin bear market. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on crypto ATM growth, and has it stopped or slowed?
Well, it seems to, I mean, according to the numbers of installations, it seemed to have slowed down a bit. But there's a lot of, not only are we smack bang in the middle of the halvening cycle, there's, so perhaps some of the reasons why initially Bitcoin ATMs exploded in growth was because of the fact that it was a lot harder to buy Bitcoin back in the days. Now you've got a lot more services online to buy them from. So there's kind of it's just as easy for someone to actually buy Bitcoin via an online service as it is to go into a local ATM. And also there's, regulations have been very heavy handed recently in the UK. They basically, they said shut down. You've got to shut down all your ATMs, which crucified the ATM industry in the UK. So it's just one of those industries that's not industries, but sectors that's a lot easier to clamp down on, right? We've said before about shutting down on mining is even quite difficult because you can, especially if you've got an off-grid power supply, then it's difficult to get to assess the traffic that's actually going towards Bitcoin mining. If you're running ATMs, you literally have to plonk them physically in a shop, and you can have people literally see the ATM in the shop and dob you in. So it's something that's a lot easier to clamp down on because it's something that's physically there. And I think that probably scares a lot of shop owners as well. As much as Bitcoin still enjoyed a lot of positive press, recently, aside from price aside, but from the actual good things that Bitcoin can do as money and functionally, there's still a lot of probably FUD, going around about the fact that Bitcoin could still be banned in some way, and so shop owners don't want to take that risk as much as perhaps they used to do, because the risk reward was a lot bigger back then. So I think it's still going to grow. It's just going to pick up again, I think, on the way to the more closer to the halvening. So for now it's just kind of a pause. Plus, the other thing is that when a market gets saturated back in the day, there were much fewer Bitcoin ATM companies. Now there's quite a number of them, so the competition gets more fierce. Then you've got the not only have you got the bear market, but a massive increase in competition means that your profit margins are squeezed. So then you've got companies that will have to slow down their installations because the market's saturated in certain areas. So kind of there's a lot of factors involved in, I think, but I think the growth will pick up again. It just reaches that natural point where you can't just keep on going up forever without a kind of bit of a pullback.
It is funny, Bitcoin being such an online currency. People are always like, why do you need an ATM? Why do you need a physical location if it's this amazing digital money? And it turns out when trading cash for Bitcoin, whereas credit cards and other things can be canceled, cash can't. So if you get the cash and it's in the box, you can send them the Bitcoin safely. And this technique and this technology had helped a lot of people get their first Satoshis, and some people even get anonymous Satoshis. So shout out to Martine Wishmayer and General Bytes, as well as our friend Michael Dupree and EasyBit for helping so many people get their first Bitcoins through these ATMs. If you were unsure about Coinbase, or even before that, we had strange ways you had to get Bitcoin, going to an ATM, trading some dollars for some sats right there has always seemed like a good idea. So I think it's exciting to see the incredible growth of the chart. It's sad to see it slow down, but it's probably just, like Dan said, a part of the bear market and a part of perhaps oversaturation, getting too excited during the bull market. Josh Agala, what do you think about Bitcoin ATMs and the possible slowdown of their growth?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one. There's definitely there's definitely a lot of flack being thrown at them from a whole lot of regulators. We're seeing, like Dan mentioned, the FCA really go hard and pretty much outlaw them. Then you also, the competition's going crazy online. So I'm actually waiting for the time when normal ATMs get switched on. It's just a software upgrade, really. A lot of ATMs have also got inputs. I also really like what Ben Ark's building. He's building an open source ATM where people can build them from component parts. Really cool stuff, including offline. So a really interesting way of doing offline Lightning transactions into a an ATM. But yeah, I don't know. Martin should answer this one.
I think the Bitcoin ATMs will continue growing, and we'll look at this later as just a bend before another climb. I agree with Josh. I think the inherent pressure is there for the normal ATM industry to get on this. It's free money. It's another source of fees and percentages. So I don't know how long with this will last, but I do just again thank the incredible pioneers in all of these industries, both Kraken, Coinbase, BitInstant, EasyBit, General Bytes, all of these people, Slush Pool, all of these things help create the Bitcoin economy that we have today. So whether we still use those tools or not, doesn't mean that they weren't useful when we needed them. We're running out of time. Dan, Eve, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to turn this around because I like Josh's suggestion of, in terms of a question, who is the next? I'm going to ask you a question. So because I'm unprepared, I'm going to ask you guys a question, which is who is the next Bitcoiner to maximalist to turn into a kind of not so maximalista?
Yeah.
Josh,
Tweet.
do you want to take this one first?
Actually, I want the people in the chat to tweet their answers out. Let them know hashtag the Bitcoin show, the Bitcoin group, and I think it'll be. I mean, Tone's already, Tone Base, as much as he goes on about Bitcoin maximalism, he's always showing charts for ETH and gold and everything else. So, I don't think he's that sold on it. I've had many a conversation about different projects with Tone here and there over the years, and there was one project that he liked, which was very close to a proof of attendance thing. It was some sort of NFT to let you into a club or something like that he likes. Because I asked him, what is an altcoin that you actually like, Tone? Come on. But anyway, I think it'll maybe Tone.
I don't know if I can pick an actual person, but I do think it's going to be all about the price. They're going to talk about how low the price was, how they never thought it could get this low, how it broke all of their charts and their triangles, and that it's absolutely hopeless, that there's no way that Bitcoin could ever go back up. So they have no choice. They're selling, and they're telling you right after they sold. They're never going to tell you before they sold. They're always going to tell you after. Isn't that interesting? But we'll have to see. Like they say, if you grow old long enough, you'll get to see all your heroes turn lousy, something like that. Josh Shigala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week after Dan's incredible turnabout question?
Hey, actually, I just want to give a shout out to BTC Moon Guy. I remember, was it on Twitter? There's always BTC Moon Guy would come in and say to the moon. What was the question? Sorry, I was busy on the chat.
To the moon, prediction or story of the week. We're running out of time.
Okay, sorry guys, sorry. Prediction is, well, story of the week. Actually, we have some announcements from us over at the Standard. We have some user interface updates on the beta. Claiming and staking is now possible on the beta. Which is on the testnet. It's all testnet stuff at the moment, and really would love people to come and test and check it out. Adding about sections and stuff like that, some back-end contract fixes on the smart contracts, some calculations and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of really cool little updates. Join us on our little journey to create the ultimate stablecoin protocol, and hopefully it'll be cross-chain minting, so we can mint onto RGB on the Lightning Network and stuff like that. So there's interesting stuff for the BTC maximalists as well.
when coin market cap?
Yeah, it'll be soon enough. Basically, we haven't been focused on all the stuff like that. We've just been focused on sort of putting together the tech and also the community, really building the community out, building the DAO out. So now we're starting to work on D-Work, which is really cool because it allows us to put bounties up and in the member government's token, as well as stable coins, so that people can actually pay their rent, as well as take part in the project. Yeah, so that's really exciting to see that and grow that out from the core team out to further people. Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to all the Bitcoin conferences that are going on. I know we missed Baltic Honey Badger in Riga. Coming up soon is HCPP in Prague. They've also got BTC Azores going off this week on a small island off the coast of Portugal, where my ancestors are from. We've got Bitcoin Amsterdam coming up in a few weeks. I think Law BitConf in Latin America. If you're down there, check that one out. And there's even a historical NFT convention happening in Barcelona. Shout out to Theo Goodman, who will be there, and to the Nakamoto Pepe, one of 300, which just sold again for 90 Ethereum. That's around $180,000 for the Nakamoto Pepe. So very cool stuff still happening in NFTs and Bitcoin, despite it being a bear market. But thanks again to everybody for giving us a thumbs up down below. Push subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.
Bye.